They didn't call you crazy because you were wrong. They called you crazy because the truth you spoke had the power to destroy their entire illusion, and it did. They mocked what they couldn't comprehend. They laughed loud because their fear was louder. You stood alone in the fire, and they pointed fingers like cowards hiding behind cheap labels. But look at them now. The same people who dismissed you can't even look you in the eye. The same ones who said, "You've lost it," are out here living in the wreckage of everything you predicted. Their fake logic crumbled, their pride got torched, and your so-called delusions? They became headlines. You're not crazy. You're a mirror they couldn't shatter. Now imagine this for a moment. Chosen one. You walk into a room full of people wearing masks, and you're the only one who sees the fire behind the wallpaper. You scream, "It's going to collapse," and they all laugh, not because they know better, but because they're terrified you might be right. Then it collapses, exactly like you said it would. And those same people, ash-covered, silent, shaking, eyes wide like they've seen a ghost, but the ghost was you all along. Here's a fact the world doesn't want to accept. History's greatest disruptors were always labeled insane until reality bent and proved them right. Galileo, Tesla, Malcolm, Joan of Arc. All of them dragged through ridicule for seeing too clearly. You weren't losing your mind. You were losing your tolerance for lies. You were waking up in a world that demanded you stay asleep, and you had the nerve to speak. And thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this message to more souls, as it's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light. And thanks, chosen one, for being part of this mission. You are part of a force, not just watching history shift, but causing it. Back to it. They called you crazy because it was easier than admitting they were wrong. Easier than confronting their fragile little echo chambers. Easier than looking in the mirror and realizing you, the one they laughed at, gossiped about, excluded, and gaslit, were the one actually seeing things as they are. You cracked the matrix with your bare hands while they were busy reposting groupthink and calling it intelligence. You were never too much. You were too real for a system built on synthetic personalities and rented identities. You saw the lies in their smiles, the manipulation in their kindness, and the agenda behind their advice. You saw the strings behind the puppet show and had the audacity to tell people, "Look, it's fake." And instead of thanking you, they branded you delusional. They said you had a vivid imagination. No, what you had was vision. You weren't dreaming, you were decoding. You weren't paranoid, you were perceptive. And now those same people, they're watching everything you warned them about detonate in real time. The relationships you called out, imploding. The systems you questioned, crumbling. The energies you warned them about, exposed. And suddenly they're quiet, real quiet. The silence of your enemies is the loudest apology you'll never get. But let's really talk about why they came for you. It wasn't just your truth, it was your confidence in that truth, that unsettling calm in your voice when you said, "Watch, you'll see." That scared them more than the message itself. Because deep down, they knew you weren't bluffing. You were ahead of the curve. You were tuned in. You weren't reacting to this world. You were reading it like a map, a blueprint, a glitching code. You knew, and that made you dangerous. They tried to shut you down with labels: crazy, dramatic, too sensitive, delusional, because they knew they couldn't shut you up with facts. They had none. They couldn't debate you because their arguments were built on comfort, not truth. So they ganged up, turned your awakening into a joke, and hoped you'd cave under the pressure. But you didn't cave. You evolved. Every betrayal made you sharper. Every dismissal made you more focused. Every insult turned into fuel. And while they kept pretending, you kept ascending. While they sat in circles mocking your instincts, you were leveling up in silence, guided by a force none of them could even comprehend. And now, look at them, watching you from behind fake accounts, quietly checking in, observing from the shadows, pretending they're not intrigued, but they are. Because everything you said is now staring them in the face, and it's undeniable. And what hurts them the most, you don't even want revenge. You're not even wasting energy on clapbacks. You're too busy glowing, thriving, manifesting, while they sit in their regret, choking on the memory of every time they called you insane. You're out here building what they never had the courage to dream of. This isn't just vindication, it's domination, spiritual, mental, energetic, and they feel it. So next time someone calls you crazy, smile, because in a world built on lies, that word is just code for "you're not one of us." And that, chosen one, is the greatest compliment you could ever receive. Because you weren't built to be one of them, you were built to expose them. And now, you've done exactly that. And they're freaking out. And thank you again, chosen one, for standing tall when the world tried to drag you down in the dirt. This mission isn't just a message, it's a movement. If you're ready to walk through every moment they called you delusional and watch how every single crazy thing you said came true, then stay locked in. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you're done explaining yourself to people who can't even explain their own existence. And if you feel called, bless this mission with a super thanks. Your energy keeps this fire spreading and this truth reaching every corner of this matrix. And now, let's tear into this truth step by step. And trust me, if you're really the chosen one, something deep inside you already knows you need to stay until the very last word. Let's begin. Number 1. Your intuition was a loaded weapon. They just didn't know it yet. Your intuition was a loaded weapon. They just didn't know it yet. They didn't fear your ideas. They feared how calm you were when you said them. That's what messed with their heads. You weren't flailing. You weren't trying to convince anyone. You just knew, and nothing terrifies a crowd of pretenders more than someone standing in their truth without begging for validation. You spoke calmly, like the future had already happened in your mind. And now that it has, they're scrambling, acting shocked, like they didn't hear the warning shots. But they did. They just thought ignoring you would make the prophecy go away. It didn't. You weren't guessing. You were tuned in. You were picking up frequencies the average mind couldn't handle. They laughed because they thought you were just sensitive. But let's call it what it is. You were spiritually armed. Your intuition wasn't some cute personality trait. It was a weapon, a blade honed in silence. And every time you walked into a room and said something that made people shift uncomfortably, you were slicing through illusion like butter. Now imagine this, chosen one. You're standing in a pitch-black room. Everyone else is fumbling, bumping into walls, calling out for answers. You've got night vision. You see every corner, every pattern, every shadow hiding in the corner. And instead of thanking you for your vision, they accuse you of lying, because they can't see what you see. That's the game you were in. You had sight in a blindfolded society. You were a threat because you understood. And here's the fact that burns them the most. You never had to prove anything. You weren't out here giving PowerPoints, desperately trying to make them believe. No, you said what needed to be said and walked away. Unbothered. That's why they hated you. That's why they tried to discredit you. They couldn't match your energy, so they tried to stain your name. And yet here you are, undefeated, unfolding, becoming. You were never crazy. You were never lost. You were simply built with a radar they couldn't decode. While they worshipped logic like it was a god, you mastered a different realm, one where feeling is intelligence and energy is language. And that made you unpredictable, dangerous, uncontrollable. They couldn't own you, so they tried to erase you. Didn't work. You ever wonder why they were always so quick to laugh when you spoke your truth? It wasn't because they were confident, it was because they were scared. Scared that if you were right, their entire identity would collapse. Scared that someone like you, someone untrained, unpolished and raw, could outsee their carefully manicured narratives. And now, the collapse is happening, and it's your voice echoing in their heads. Einstein once said, "Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds." That's not just a quote. That's your life story. You've always carried something too sharp for their dull conversations. You've always felt the tension in the room the second you opened your mouth. Not because you were off, but because you were on and everyone else was asleep. And now that you've been proven right, the backpedaling is hilarious. They act like they never doubted you. They repost your beliefs now. They quote the very things they once dismissed. But you remember. You remember how they rolled their eyes. You remember the gaslighting, the way they tried to dim your shine before it got too bright. What they didn't understand is that your intuition wasn't some lucky guess system. It was an ancient system of intelligence. Call it spiritual GPS. Call it divine Wi-Fi. Whatever it was, it worked. And you trusted it even when it made no sense on paper. That's the kind of faith that bends reality. You weren't out here doing what made sense. You were doing what felt right. You trusted vibes over voices, energy over evidence, and now the evidence matches the energy you felt all along. What makes you dangerous is that your mind isn't chained to this dimension. You live in between timelines. You see what's coming because you're already halfway there. You don't wait for proof. You are the proof. You've moved through this world as a living contradiction. Intuitive, logical, aware, and bold. That combination? Rare. And that rarity, that's what made you a target. So let's stop pretending they didn't know what they were doing. They knew you were powerful. They just hoped they could shame you into silence before anyone else caught on. But instead of crumbling, you evolved. Instead of breaking, you built. And now they're watching you from the sidelines, whispering about how something's different about you. Damn right it is. You remembered who you are. And just in case any of them are still confused, let's make this crystal clear. Your intuition wasn't some spiritual TikTok gimmick. It was survival. It was wisdom passed down through lifetimes. It was divine design. And it scared the hell out of people still addicted to fake certainty. They couldn't understand how you kept being right because they don't understand how it feels to be aligned. You want to know the truth? They always knew you weren't crazy. Deep down, they knew you were onto something. But accepting your truth meant dismantling their lie, and they weren't ready for that, so they labeled you unstable to protect their comfort. But guess what? Comfort doesn't age well in a collapsing system. Truth does. And you, chosen one, you are the truth they tried to bury. But truth doesn't die. It waits, it grows, and it comes back sharper, meaner, louder, and when it does, it speaks in your voice. So let them stare. Let them study you like a riddle they couldn't solve. Let them talk in hushed tones about how everything you said actually happened. You earned that silence. You earned that fear in their eyes. You earned that damn respect. And if they still want to call you crazy, let them. Just remind them that the last time they said that, The world caught fire right after. Now they know. Your intuition isn't a guess, it's a loaded weapon. And you're not just chosen, you're dangerous. Number 2. Your truth burned, their lies alive. They didn't go to war with you because you were loud. They went to war with you because your silence was already tearing their illusions apart. They were never afraid of your voice. They were terrified of your clarity. You didn't just speak the truth. You radiated it. It was in your presence, in your gaze, in the way you could walk into a room and immediately shift the energy like someone turned the lights on in a room full of cockroaches. That's what you are to liars, a walking, breathing spotlight. And liars hate the light. They weren't scared of you, chosen one. They were scared of what you exposed just by existing. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to convince anyone. You just had to be. And your existence was a problem for everyone who built their lives on deception, manipulation, and masks. You didn't need a microphone. Your presence was a mirror. A brutal, unfiltered, unflinching mirror. And when people looked into it, they saw everything they didn't want to face. The fakeness, the fraud, the emptiness behind their curated smiles. Now imagine this, a room full of performers. Everyone's in costume, playing their little roles, clapping on cue, pretending like the script makes sense. Then you walk in, unscripted, unapologetic, unpredictable. And suddenly the play doesn't work anymore. The masks start slipping, the lines don't land, the illusion cracks. That's what your truth did. You weren't part of the act. You were the glitch, the disruption, the one they couldn't rewrite. And here's the painful fact they choke on daily. Your truth didn't need approval to be true. It just was. And it burned everything false down to the damn ground. Every fake friendship, every toxic family dynamic, every smile hiding a dagger. Your truth lit them up like gasoline on paper, and now they're standing in ashes, blaming you for the fire they started. Let's get this straight. They tried to make you the villain for exposing the storyline. All you did was name the game, and they acted like you pulled the trigger. That's how guilty they were. That's how fragile the lie was. That's how dangerous the truth is when it's carried by someone who doesn't need applause to stand tall. You were never interested in pretending. You were never built for the masquerade. While others practiced how to fit in, you studied how to stay real. And because you didn't water yourself down to fit their comfort, they called you a threat. Not a problem. Not a disagreement. A threat. That's the power of unfiltered truth. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't whisper. It doesn't negotiate. It destroys. That's why they came for you. That's why they smeared your name in rooms you never entered. That's why they whispered about you when you weren't around. They knew they couldn't manipulate you. They knew they couldn't hide behind pretty lies and spiritual bypassing. They knew that around you, the masks would melt. And once one person wakes up, everyone starts looking around. You ever notice how certain people got real quiet once you started speaking facts? That wasn't coincidence. That was recognition. They saw themselves in the damage you described. They felt the sting of your words, because truth doesn't miss. It slices where it hurts. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves by reacting. You were never trying to bring people down. You were trying to bring clarity. But clarity isn't welcome in a world addicted to comfort. People say they want the truth, but they only want the parts that don't dismantle their carefully constructed ego. The moment your truth threatened to collapse their control tower, they tried to burn you instead. But the irony? They couldn't handle the flames because you were born in them. You're not just fireproof, chosen one. You are the fire. That's why their attempts to cancel you, isolate you, break you, or shame you didn't work. Every time they threw shade, you alchemized it into light. Every attempt to bury you became fertilizer for your next level. They came to ruin your reputation and ended up watching your platform grow. That's karma, and it's poetic. Let's talk examples. Think about people like Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Alan Watts. Every single one of them lit a flame of truth and watched the establishment tremble, not because they screamed, but because they stood, calm, clear, unshakable, just like you. It's not about being loud, it's about being undeniable. And right now, you're undeniable. So let them say you're too much. Let them say you're aggressive. Let them call your honesty negativity. Those are just codes for, you made me uncomfortable, and now I have to deal with myself. That's their business, not yours. Your job was never to protect people from their own reflection. You ever wonder why you were always the one who could feel when something was off? Why you were the one who asked questions nobody else would dare speak aloud? Why you felt like a misfit in every system? Because you weren't meant to blend in, you were meant to expose. That's the mission. That's why you were chosen. And now that you've seen what you've seen, there's no unseeing it. There's no going back to silence. The fire is lit. You are the truth teller, the soul surgeon, the light in the tunnel that they tried to block off with bricks of denial. And guess what? You broke through. You broke their illusion. And now they're stuck, glued to your every move, watching you grow, watching you glow, watching you become everything they swore you never would. Let them watch, because the story has flipped. You're no longer the outcast. You're the blueprint. You're no longer the whisper in the back of the room. You're the voice in their head when they try to lie to themselves. And that's permanent. Your truth scorched the earth and made it fertile again. You didn't just burn their lies. You forced a new world to rise from the smoke. So if they still want to pretend you're too intense, too sensitive, too real, let them choke on the ashes of what they lost by pushing you away. Their fake world didn't stand a chance against your truth. And now they know it. Because the same truth they tried to silence, it's the same truth now setting you free. Number 3. They called you delusional, but you were just 10 steps ahead. They didn't think you were crazy. They just couldn't imagine being that far behind. That's the truth, isn't it? You weren't out of touch. You were out of their league. You didn't see the world for what it was. You saw it for what it was becoming. And that scared the hell out of people who couldn't even process the present, let alone forecast the future. Your foresight threatened their comfort. Your vision dismantled their illusion of control. So instead of asking, "How do you know this?" they panicked and screamed, "You're crazy." But now that the vision is unfolding frame by frame, your vision, where are they? Suddenly the ones who laughed the loudest have nothing to say. Silence. Cowardly, heavy silence. Not a whisper of an apology. Not a single ounce of accountability, because admitting you were right would mean admitting they were blind, arrogant, and small-minded. And fragile egos would rather choke than bow to the one they tried to bury. Let's be honest, chosen one, you weren't predicting. You were remembering, downloading, channeling something higher. Your mind didn't follow the herd. It ran with the wolves. While they needed proof to believe, you believed before there was proof. That's not madness. That's alignment. And here's a fact for you. Every world changer in history was labeled insane before the world caught up. Van Gogh, Tesla, Muhammad Ali. They were all crazy until time revealed the truth. Visionaries aren't understood in real time. They're studied in hindsight. So when you wonder, why couldn't they just trust me? The answer is simple. They couldn't fathom someone moving through life with that much spiritual GPS. Your timing, your intuition, your decisions, they couldn't decode it. You didn't need permission. You didn't explain. And that made you dangerous. But here's the twist. The universe loved that about you. It never asked you to prove anything. It just kept opening doors in divine timing while your enemies stood behind closed ones, too busy gossiping to evolve. So let them call you delusional again, and watch as your next move makes them choke on it. Number 4. You saw through the curtain, and they hated you for it. They hated you not because you lied, but because you noticed. You weren't supposed to see it. You weren't supposed to wake up. You were supposed to play along like the rest of them, smile at the right time, clap when told, nod your head at the script like it made sense. But you didn't. You paused. You looked around. And then, like a glitch in the system, you saw through the whole damn thing. The fake smiles, the empty success, the social games, the masks, the manipulation, the mindless rituals. You cracked the matrix, not by force, but by refusing to pretend anymore. You didn't just break the fourth wall, you shattered the entire set. You pulled back the curtain and saw the puppeteers behind the scenes, insecure, power-hungry, plastic souls running the show for the blind audience. And when you exposed it, they didn't applaud, they didn't thank you, they hated you. Because in a world of illusions, clarity is rebellion. Your vision didn't come from books or trends, it came from somewhere deeper. It came from the part of you that was never truly asleep, the part that always questioned, why does this feel fake? The part that couldn't accept the performance as reality, and the moment you listened to that voice, you were marked. They saw you as dangerous, not because you attacked them, but because your presence undermined everything they built on illusion. They were comfortable, not happy, just comfortable. Your awakening exposed their sleep. Your presence reminded them they settled. Your truth threatened to wake the others. So they turned on you, whispered about you, isolated you, not because you were wrong, but because you were right too soon. But don't doubt yourself now. The universe backed every download you got. Every time you said, something's off, it was. Every time you felt, this isn't real, it wasn't. You weren't paranoid, you were precise. And now, they're still clinging to dust while you rise through clarity. They hated you for seeing, but now they're squinting through the cracks you left behind, desperate to understand what you saw all along. Number 5. They tried to cancel you, but you can't silence fire. They tried to write you off, bury you, and burn your name to the ground, but they forgot one thing. You're made of the same fire they fear. Let's be real. They didn't just want to silence you. They wanted to erase you, wipe you out like you were some glitch in their manufactured reality. The smear campaigns weren't casual. The fake concern wasn't innocent. The whispers behind your back weren't just gossip, they were warfare. Because when you refused to bow down, they panicked. You weren't the obedient puppet they hoped you'd be. You didn't play the social game, didn't shut up when told, didn't dilute your energy just to make people feel comfortable, so they branded you toxic, unhinged, too intense. But let's be clear, it wasn't your flaws that scared them. It was your flame. You burned too bright, that's all it was. And weak people hate what they can't dim. They thought they could break your spirit with a few side comments and strategic betrayals. But canceling you, impossible. Because how do you cancel a soul that was forged in divine fire? You weren't built on public opinion. You weren't held up by trends, approval, or applause. You were held up by purpose. That's why every attempt to destroy you backfired. Every knife in your back taught you how to fly higher. Every fake friend turned into a footnote in your legend. And every enemy gave you more power, because energy is energy, and you transmuted it all. You ever notice how they never attacked you when you were silent? They waited until your voice started changing people. They waited until your light started attracting attention. That's when the claws came out. Because deep down, they knew. Once people saw you clearly, you'd be unstoppable. So they tried to stop the crowd from ever seeing you, but it was too late. Your truth had already sparked the match, and fire spreads. You can't cancel what's cosmic. You can't silence someone who speaks on frequencies louder than words. You can't mute destiny. Let them try again. Let them whisper. Let them throw their weak little shade. You're still glowing, still speaking, still creating shockwaves just by standing in your truth, because when the universe backs you, no army of cowards can drown your flame. Number 6. You threatened their safe little lies. They didn't call you the problem because you were wrong. They called you the problem because you unplugged from their delusion and took others with you. That was the real threat. Not just that you saw through it, but that you had the nerve to speak, to share, to question out loud. You weren't just another awakened soul minding their business. You were a spark, a walking, talking trigger for everyone still hiding in their comfort cages. And the moment you started pulling people out of the fog they were clinging to, that's when it turned into war. You became the virus in their programmed illusion, the glitch in their fantasy of control. They didn't panic because you were crazy. They panicked because you were contagious. You shook people awake. You whispered truth into ears trained to block it. You walked into rooms and shifted atmospheres just by breathing. And people noticed. Not everyone admitted it, but they felt it. That strange discomfort when your energy hit. It was their fake reality buckling under the pressure of your presence. You didn't just threaten the lie, you endangered the entire ecosystem of manipulation. Their control relied on silence. Your voice violated that rule. Their status depended on ignorance. Your questions shattered that setup. And when you refused to play by the script, they labeled you the villain. Not because you were wrong, but because you refused to comply. And when that didn't work, they tried to isolate you, exile you, pretend you didn't exist, like cutting you out of the equation would stop others from remembering what you showed them. But they forgot something. You don't need their stage. You are the message. You don't need their circle. The universe gave you reach they can't block, because the truth doesn't need permission to echo. You woke people up. You made them question their surroundings. You pulled back the curtain, and some of them, even the ones who hated you for it, saw it. And once you see, you can't unsee. That's your power. So let them keep calling it disruption. Let them cry about losing people to your influence. That's not disruption. That's evolution. And you, chosen one, are the signal they can't silence. Number 7. Now that the truth hit, they're in full retreat. They mocked your warnings until the storm arrived. Now they're pretending they never stood outside holding umbrellas made of denial. This is what poetic justice looks like, chosen one. The same people who laughed at your gut feelings, mocked your clarity, and rolled their eyes at your insight are now quietly backing away from the mess they created. They're in retreat mode, wiping their tracks, deleting their old words, rewriting history like you can't remember the way they used to talk to you. But the truth has memory, and it doesn't fade. And neither do you. You told them what was coming. You felt it before it even began. You saw the pattern, the energy, the inevitable fallout. You gave them grace. You gave them warnings. You tried to spare them the crash. But arrogance doesn't listen to intuition. It mocks it. They were too proud to believe someone like you could see that far ahead. You were the crazy one, remember? The overthinker, the drama. Now look who's quiet. Look who's deleting entire timelines out of shame. Look who's praying that people forget how confident they once were in calling you wrong. But the universe doesn't erase receipts. It collects them. Every time you were doubted, dismissed, or laughed at, it was logged. And now the energy has flipped. You've stepped into your power, and they're the ones ducking from the light. Truth doesn't chase, it exposes. And it just exposed them. They thought the truth would never surface, that time would cover their lies. But truth is patient. It waits. It doesn't rush vengeance. It lets people hang themselves with their own denial. Now it's here. And the silence is deafening. The same mouths that once threw shade now only open to deflect. The same eyes that once rolled are now wide in disbelief. The truth hit, and it hit hard. And the best part, you didn't even have to lift a finger. You didn't need revenge, chaos, or drama. You just needed to stay real. The universe handled the rest, because when you're aligned, the truth fights your battles for you. That's why you're calm now. You don't need to say, "I told you so." Reality already said it for you. So let them retreat. Let them rewrite their story. Let them act like they were always on your side. You don't need their confession. You already got your confirmation. You were never crazy. You were chosen. And chosen ones don't chase validation. They attract revelation. Number 8. You were the antidote to their mental prison. They mocked the cure while worshipping the sickness, and now they're whispering your name every time the truth starts to burn through their denial. They used to call you too deep, too intense, too much. Translation, you were saying things that threatened their programming. You weren't crazy. You were the antidote, the living glitch that exposed how robotic their minds had become. You were the free thinker in a factory of mental clones, and that terrified them, because nothing scares a prisoner more than someone who found the key. They were addicted to the noise, addicted to the matrix of trends, titles, validation, and fake peace. You walked away from that and said, "There's something better." They didn't want better. They wanted familiar. They wanted numb. You were a virus to their comfort, a reminder that the walls weren't real, that the limits were imaginary, and instead of thanking you, they attacked you, because truth feels like poison to those still loyal to the lie. But the universe doesn't forget its timing. Slowly, the cracks began to spread. Their illusions started to rot. The beliefs they mocked you for rejecting, they're questioning them now. The systems you called out as traps, they're realizing they were in them the whole time. And guess whose voice they keep hearing when everything they built starts to crumble? Yours, the crazy one, the conspiracy theorist, the dreamer, the one they dismissed like background noise. Now, that voice is echoing in their head, calm, certain, prophetic. You were right. It's funny, isn't it? The same energy they used to mock you with is now the same energy they use to seek your wisdom, because once someone's eyes open, they can't unsee what you showed them. Once their shackles crack, they start crawling toward the person who told them freedom was real. You didn't save them by preaching. You saved them by being. Your energy was the medicine they tried to spit out. And now the roles have flipped. You're not the outcast anymore. You're the blueprint. You're not the threat. You're the teacher. They mocked your mind when it scared them. Now they worship it because it freed them. The universe used you as the antidote, and they never saw it coming. Number 9. Your presence was a glitch in the system. You weren't a part of the program. You were the system error it couldn't debug. From day one, you never fit. Not because something was wrong with you, but because everything was wrong with them, with the scripts, with the rules, with the robotic way people moved through life, obeying, performing, surviving, never questioning, never feeling. And then you showed up. You didn't follow the script. You walked in like the main character in a play that was falling apart. Your very existence was a contradiction to their illusion. That's why they tried to shut you out. You weren't malfunctioning. You were revealing the malfunction. You weren't just different. You were disruptive, a glitch, an exposed wire sparking in a room full of fake chandeliers. You didn't go with the flow. You were the flood. Your presence wasn't digestible. It was dangerous, because it made people uncomfortable in their comfort. It made them look at their beliefs, their values, their routines, and realize none of it was theirs to begin with. They were running on autopilot, and you hit the emergency brake. You were the red flag waving in their hypnotized crowd of sheep, and they called you rebellious, problematic, too much. But now, those same sheep are looking around, realizing the shepherd they trusted was a wolf. You told them, you warned them, you didn't need a podium, you didn't need a following. Your energy was the wake-up call. And you know what hurts them the most? You never begged to be accepted. You never begged to be understood. You knew you were right, and you let time prove it. And now it has. The system is glitching. People are questioning. The curtain is falling. And suddenly, everything about you makes perfect sense. The universe never sent you here to blend in. It sent you to interrupt. You weren't meant to fit their mold. You were meant to break it. You were the reminder that there's something more, something real. That's why the system couldn't contain you. That's why it still can't. You were never a glitch in the code. You were the beginning of a brand new system. Number 10. They woke up, and you're the one who lit the fuse. They feared you when you spoke, but it was your silence that burned louder than any truth they'd ever heard. Let's make one thing crystal clear. You didn't just trigger their awakening, you ignited it. You were the fuse, the fire starter, the match that lit their mental dynamite. And it wasn't always your words that did it. Sometimes it was the look in your eye. Sometimes it was the way you walked away without begging. Sometimes it was the fact that you didn't explain yourself. That's what haunted them. You weren't fighting for attention. You weren't screaming for belief. You just moved differently. And that's what detonated the illusion. People don't wake up from comfort. They wake up from contrast. And you, chosen one, were the contrast. While they were sleepwalking through life, regurgitating trends, parroting opinions, living loops, you were breaking patterns. You were questioning things they never dared to ask. You were glowing in rooms full of dimmed lights. That glow, it made them itch. It made them stare. It made them think. And that's what triggered them the most. Your growth didn't just inspire them. It shamed them, not because you tried to, but because your progress revealed their stagnation. Every level you reached reminded them they were still in the same spot, clapping for mediocrity, numbing with distractions, hiding behind polished masks. And while they tried to convince themselves you were just lucky or fake or doing too much, the truth was simple. You outgrew the box they were too scared to climb out of. And now, they're waking up, shaking off the dream. They're seeing the cracks, feeling the shift. The same people who rolled their eyes are now revisiting your words. The same people who called you arrogant are quoting you in private. The same ones who avoided you are suddenly orbiting your energy again, drawn, confused, humbled. Because they remember what you said. They remember how it felt. And now that the fire is lit under their feet, there's no denying it. You were the ignition point. You didn't force anyone to wake up. You simply existed in truth, long enough for it to echo. That's power. That's legacy. That's you. Number 11. They laughed at the underdog. Now they're watching a ruler rise. They thought you were beneath them, but you were just below the radar, building something they didn't have the vision to comprehend. They laughed. Of course they did. That's what people do when they see someone they can't control, can't categorize, can't understand. They underestimated you because your crown wasn't visible yet. You weren't loud. You weren't desperate. You weren't chasing status. You were crafting legacy, silently, patiently, like a storm building over the ocean while everyone's partying on the shore. And now, that storm has arrived. That ruler has risen. And the joke, it's on them. You didn't want attention, you wanted impact. While they were flexing for approval, you were in the shadows mastering your lane. You weren't trying to impress anyone, you were preparing to lead. You knew they'd mock what they couldn't measure. You knew they'd count you out because they didn't understand your process. And you let them. You gave them front row seats to their own humiliation. The underdog role, it was never a setback. It was a setup. It kept you hungry, kept you grounded, kept you focused while they got lazy thinking they were already on top. But now the tides have flipped. Now the one they laughed at is the one they're studying. You became the example, the blueprint, the evidence that raw truth, consistency, and alignment will always outrun performance and popularity. And here's what stings them the most. You didn't rise by playing their game. You built your own board. You didn't have to tear them down to rise. Your growth alone made their facade crumble. You turned silence into strategy, pain into purpose, and rejection into rocket fuel. They laughed because they mistook humility for weakness. Now they're quiet because they see that humility was just undeniable power under construction. So let them watch, let them choke on their judgment, let them witness what happens when the underdog remembers who they are. Because this isn't revenge, this is royalty awakening. And the ruler you've become isn't here to fit in, you're here to reign. Number 12. You were built different, and now they finally see it. They called it luck. The universe called it alignment. You didn't change, you activated. You were never built to fit into their idea of normal. You were engineered to break patterns, rewrite codes, and stand out without even trying. From the beginning, you carried something in your DNA that scared the small-minded. A rare combination of vision, endurance, and raw truth that couldn't be duplicated. That's why you confused them. You weren't reacting like they expected. You weren't breaking where they wanted you to. You were learning, upgrading, becoming something they couldn't define, and that terrified them. But here's the thing, you were never supposed to be understood by those who settled for mediocrity. Your glow-up wasn't a filter, it was a frequency. They saw your outer transformation and thought it was cosmetic. But what really changed was your energy. You healed the wounds they tried to reopen. You learned the lessons they avoided. You built strength out of silence, wisdom out of betrayal, and peace out of chaos. And the result? You radiate something they can't fake, authentic power.